Hi there traders! Early last week, S&P Global Ratings joined Moody's investor service in its assessment of the economic situation in some U.S. banks. Both agencies found it difficult and downgraded their ratings. I'm Maria Stradup and you're watching a weekly review of the U.S. stock market prepared by the InstaForex team. Let us switch to the details. On August 22nd, the Dow Jones lost more than 100 points amid a collapse of U.S. banks. The S&P declined by 0.2%. NVIDIA's earnings report was also a very important event in the previous week. The corporation reported that earnings came in at $2.70 per share in the second quarter of 2023. Thus, the revenue of the U.S. largest chip manufacturer exceeded Wall Street's forecasts by 30%. It's a larger beat than the 18% one of the previous quarter. Then traders did not fully realize how the development of artificial intelligence might affect their income. Thus, if the company's shares were purchased a week before the report, investors' income totaled 6%. Those who bought shares on Wednesday, just before the publication of NVIDIA's results, lost about 2%. In general, NVIDIA is at the forefront of the industry-wide fuss in the field of artificial intelligence. Moreover, it seems that markets priced in the share rise of tech companies in the next 2 years. The fact is that shares of such companies showed a considerable increase. Although there is no doubt that artificial intelligence will affect most fields in the future, traders had increased expectations before NVIDIA's report. As a result, their company's shares were overestimated and dropped at the end of the previous week, like those of other leading tech giants. Against this background, the NASDAQ also slid. Just in 24 hours from August 24th to August 25th, the market indicator slumped to the lowest level from the week's high of 13,775. On the chart, we see that the NASDAQ jumped amid the hype around NVIDIA and then decreased to its weekly low of 13,377 points and climbed amid a high market volatility. On Friday, the index closed with a rise of 0.9%. During the week, it added 2.3%, thus violating the downtrend that had been in force since early August. In the first part of 2023, the NASDAQ composite showed the best performance in the last 40 years, that is, since 1983. Notably, investors were also anticipating changes in the Fed's policy. However, they got news concerning this issue only on Friday, August 26th. Thus, Jerome Powell made it clear that still high inflation could be a reason for further monetary policy tightening. In other words, the monetary policy will remain unchanged and the regulator will continue keeping the benchmark rate at a high level until the end of the year. In fact, Jerome Powell repeated the speech he provided at the last meeting on July 26. In particular, without price stability, we will not achieve a sustained period of strong labor market conditions that benefit all. We must keep at it until job is done, the politician said. He also pointed out that future actions of the Fed would be determined by U.S. statistical data. It turned out that Powell's speech contained both hawkish and dovish hints. In this slide, the US dollar stagnated near the level of 104 points, while stock indices managed to recoup some of their losses. The S&P also closed the week with a rise amid the data on the market cap of tech companies. Although the weekly results of the S&P are not as impressive as those of the NASDAQ, it also managed to stop the downtrend and gain 0.8%. Like its counterpart, the S&P slumped to its low of 4,473 from its high of 4,357 in 24 hours from Thursday to Friday. After that, it stagnated within the range of 4,370 to 4,400, where it was hovering during the first part of the week. For your reference, August is one of the most difficult months for the stock market in a year. This year, investors have a good reason to lock in profits on the shares of companies with mega capitalizations. Notably, their stocks have been trading quite high. The index stabilized last week, but experts believe that by the end of August, the S&P could lose up to 5%. Meanwhile, last week, the Dow Jones decreased by almost 0.5% despite a slight increase seen on Friday. This could be explained by quite an eventful week. Like the above-mentioned indices, the Dow Jones slumped from its peak of 34,700 points to the weekly low of 34,034 in 24 hours. However, the Dow Jones dropped a bit more than its colleagues and failed to recover by the end of the trading day. What's more, the indicator was also negatively affected by the rating downgrades of several American banks by two major agencies at once. Notably, it was not only the financial sector that caused a decline in the Dow. According to quarterly reports, the adjusted net profit of such transport companies as J.B. Hunt, Old Dominion, C.H. Robinson, and XPO decreased from 22 to 69% compared to a year earlier. According to analysts and industry executives, the second quarter of 2023 turned out to be the most difficult for trucking companies due to high wage costs and prices for one-time cargo transportation. A really difficult period for this kind of business is confirmed by the fact that on August 6th, Yellow Corp, the third largest transportation corporation in the United States, began bankruptcy proceedings. Analysts believe that this is a landmark event for the U.S. trucking industry and that the decline of Yellow Corp will help strengthen its competitors. Since the profit and loss reporting period for the second quarter is coming to an end, traders may shift to statistical data from the United States. It's the data on the labor market, housing demand, and the level of GDP for the second quarter that will help traders predict whether the Federal Reserve will hike the key rate on September 20th or not. However, you can be sure that the next stock market review will be issued just in a week on September 5th. The InstaForex TV team will be glad to receive your comments, questions, and estimations. We wish you profitable trading and stay tuned.